Hey guys, welcome back. If you haven't watched part 1, I'm going to throw a link up on the screen and in the description for you. I highly recommend you watch that before you get started on this. Ready? Let's go. Smackdown Shut Your Mouth is my favourite wrestling game of all time. For starters, the sheer amount of content in this game was great. Everything from table matches to I Quit matches to hardcore where you could explore the arena and even parts of the city. This was actually the first game under the new WWE branding at the time, and this game allowed you to play through a lot of the events that were going on in that time as well, like the brand split and the return of the NWO. The season mode went for 3 years and it was one of my favourite games that I played on the PS2. In my opinion, it was just fantastic. I played through the whole thing as Triple H and I just remember kicking the crap out of everyone fondly. I know some people are going to say Here Comes the Pain deserved this spot over its predecessor, but I preferred the faster gameplay in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. I hated the grappling system in Here Comes the Pain and they're wrong. This game was always a blast and I welcome anyone who thinks they can beat me, as long as they don't mind going home as losers. My first experience with the Tekken series was on a demo disc that came with my PS2, which had a demo of Tekken 4. I had a blast with that demo, and a few years down the line, a friend had picked up Tekken 5, and I couldn't tell you how frustrating Jin Kazama was in that final fight. He was cheap as hell, but the game as a whole was great. It even became one of the best selling games on the PS2, selling up to 6 million copies. Being a pro wrestling fan growing up, the character I took quickest to was King, but each of the characters were unique and fun to play in their own way. But this game had even more to offer. There was a separate third-person beat-em-up mode called The Devil Within, where you played as Jin, and Tekken 5 even allowed you to play through the arcades of Tekken 1, 2 or 3 if you felt like a bit of nostalgia. Overall, Tekken 5 was a great fighting game, even with Jinpachi Mishima being a pain in the ass. And I'm still a fan of the series to this day. I still hop on Tekken 7 from time to time, and I do miss the Tekken Force from Tekken 4, and the Devil Within game mode from Tekken 5, and look, I'd love to see them back. But for now, I'll be a fan of this series for years to come.
You win.
When I first showed this game to Josh and Amph, the look on their faces was priceless. But not only is Outlaw Golf 2 a perfectly functioning golf game, but the cast of characters, arcade gameplay and humorous commentary from comedian Dave Attell make this a unique product. If you're looking for a funny, easily accessible game to play with your mates, here's one. Seriously, this game is fun, and hell, the golf alone is good enough to just play. But I remember my favourite character was a failed rapper named Ice Stray who turns to golfing after his debut album Me Rap Good sells only 1 copy. No shit, that's the actual intro for him. There's also a stripper slash scientist named Summer, Harley the biker, Harvest the violent hippie, and a whole bunch of other colourful characters. As I said, the gameplay is perfectly functional at least. If golf allowed you to beat the shit out of your caddy? No, seriously. Imagine that. Well, this game allows you to do it. And in fact, it's actually a mechanic where you can regain lost composure. Seriously, this is a game that could not be made today. And I think that's part of the reason why it sticks out so much. It captured the era perfectly. This game would offend way too many people right now. Or it'd be banned or heavily censored. But look, if you just want a pure fun golfing game, this is what you're after. Alright, so this game had to be on here. This game was GTA for the people who weren't old enough to play GTA. Now growing up, I loved watching The Simpsons. So the fact that Hit and Run provided an open world Springfield to drive around in was great. You could buy cars from Old Gil, finding the collectible cars was another thing you could do. And they just had references to older Simpsons apps which are great. This game was a must play for any Simpsons fan. The game recreated Springfield so well, from Evergreen Terrace to the nuclear power plant, Moe's to the harbour. Everything is here and there's plenty to see. This game keeps that Simpsons humour and does it well enough that a chapter in the game can bring out the same laughter as an episode of the show brings out. All of the characters are here too, even though the only playable ones are Bart, Homer, Lisa, Marge and Apu. Other characters can be found around Springfield and interacted with though. The game is great from start to finish. I remember the one thing that took me by surprise was the fact that they even made the last chapter a Halloween one. Seeing the ghost vehicles around, witches on broomsticks around Springfield, it gave the game so much more material to work with, taking inspiration from the Treehouse of Horror episodes. Just a great game, and one that I know everyone would be keen to play again. Alright, Kingdom Hearts 3 released earlier this year, and it's a game people had been waiting for a very long time. But most recently, I replayed the first entry in the series as part of the 1.5 HD collection on PS4, and it reminded me why this series was loved by so many people in the first place. The original game released in March of 2002, and was a product as unique as it was successful. The game itself is an action RPG that combines the worlds of Disney and Final Fantasy and throws some originality into the mix. Now, I could tell you the plot of the series, but this video would be at least 3-4 hours long. And secondly, I actually don't understand the whole story myself. Yes, it's that convoluted. But all you need to know for now is that Kingdom Hearts is an adventure across the different Disney worlds. And what an adventure it is. Going from Agrabah to Neverland to just a whole bunch of unique locations. This game is a great time. And look, if it didn't exist and someone was to describe this to me, I wouldn't have thought the idea would work. But Square and Disney showed us why they're two of the smartest names in media. And fitting in with the trend of this video, I fully acknowledge that KHII is widely considered better than this game. But in the other trend of this video, which is disappointing and angering people, I haven't played KHII. But that's enough of me disappointing on this game, so let's move on to the next. Well, this isn't going to go over well. Alright, I never played horror games growing up. Horror was just never my thing. I didn't like being scared of a game I was trying to play. But I did know if I didn't have a horror game in this list, it wouldn't be fair to some of the great games that helped that genre. So here's one, Silent Hill 2, one of the greatest horror games ever made, and a gem from this generation of gaming. The game takes place in the town of Silent Hill and follows the character of James Sunderland, who's arrived in the town after receiving a letter from his dead wife. And look, this is just me, but if there's any reason not to visit a haunted town, that's probably it. Now, if I had played this game growing up, I could praise the soundtrack or the way it approached horror as a thing. But since I didn't, I'm just going to praise the fact that the secret ending is one of the best in gaming. You go through the whole game just to learn a doggo was behind it all. Hey, still worth it. Naughty Dog are one of my favourite studios. They made a lot of people's childhood awesome. On the PS1 they came up with the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy, but it didn't end there for them. They went on to release an open world platformer called Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy, and that became a successful game in its own right. But the sequel became one of the best games on PS2. Jak II, or Jak II Renegade if you're Australian, because for some reason we never get the original names of games, released in October of 2003, and it made a few key changes. The most obvious one was the introduction of weapons. Jak is now packing heat, and the game embraces this new form of combat. He can now harness the power of Dark Eco to transform into Dark Jak as well, which, I mean, easiest way to explain it is he pretty much turns into a small Hulk. But the biggest difference in this game compared to its predecessor was that Jak was no longer a silent protagonist. The game now has a hub world in Haven City. You can traverse it as you see fit with hover vehicles and a jet board, so it pretty much turns into Jak and Daxter Pro Skater 2. The game story revolves around Jak and Daxter joining an underground resistance movement to overthrow the game's antagonist Baron Praxis. Funny thing is, this is the only Naughty Dog series that I couldn't get into. No matter how much I try, I always preferred playing Ratchet and Clank. But that doesn't take away from the fact that a Jak and Daxter game belongs on a PS2 classic. In July of 2001, Rockstar published a third-person shooter by the name of Max Payne. Any story that starts with a badass cop looking for revenge after his family is murdered may sound a little cliche, but make no mistake, this game will keep you hooked to the end. The character of Max Payne himself is the aforementioned badass, being able to dual-wield smaller weapons as well as walk off bullet wounds with the help of a few painkillers. And of course, if you plan on discussing the Max Payne series, you need to give a mention to a game mechanic that has turned Max into every modern action hero. Of course, the mechanic I'm referring to is bullet time, our old friend. The game slows down and allows Max to turn himself into a man with aimbot and clearing rooms before any enemies can raise their guns to him. Story is told like a sad, gritty New York cop drama, and it's done extremely well. But by far, my favourite thing in this game, the thing I consider the best, is Max's internal monologues throughout the game. The player gets such clear insight into the mind of Max, and it's part of the reason the storytelling is so good. Let me just wrap it up by saying that I enjoyed this to the point where I own it on PS4 and now Android as well. It's just worth it. Okay, last Rockstar game, I promise, but this game was fantastic for what it was. When I first started watching YouTube years ago, I came across a review for this game by a YouTuber who no longer makes videos, and it perfectly explained why I love this game so much. The movie the game is based on is about the Warriors, a gang from Coney Island who are framed from killing the leader of New York's largest gang, the Gramercy Riffs. As a result, the Warriors have to fight their way back home to Coney Island. The game changes this though, and here's where it gets really clever. The game begins 3 months before that night and shows you how the Warriors gained their fearsome reputation. The story is all original by Rockstar for this game, and what a story it is. I played this game long before I'd seen the movie, but this may be the only example I can think of where the game that's based on the movie comes out better than its source material, and I'm dead serious with that statement. Outside of the main story, there are also flashback missions that explain how each of the gang's prominent members join, and it even explains the foundation of the gang. As a whole, it gives each warrior more of a personality than the movie could, and it makes you care about each individual character throughout the story. As for the gameplay, this isn't GTA. You can't just reach into your jacket pocket for an assault rifle. Instead, pick up a bottle, pick up a brick, or a knife. This game's combat is frantic and fun as hell, but there's more to it than just punching people in the head. Learning how to steal, tag, sneak around are also highly important skills in learning how to be a true warrior. There are a few things I wish that were in this game, like choosing what warrior to control on missions or protecting your businesses in Coney outside missions, but don't think for a second this game is lacking in content. For me, personally, this game would need to be on the PS2 Classic. My final entry has to go to a game that is part of one of my favourite series. I grew up loving the Tony Hawk games, and Tony Hawk's Underground is the perfect demonstration why. Underground was the first game with a story in the series, and it starred your created skater as you went on a journey from being useless in society to travelling the world as a pro. Underground is what happens when this formula was at its best. Level design was perfect, pretty much if you see it, you can skate it. The gameplay tweaked a few things from Pro Skater 4 and made a few improvements of its own. The biggest addition was the ability to get off your board and walk around. This gave you a way to climb ladders and get to places that would have been difficult or even impossible in previous games. But the best decision the game made was the same one Pro Skater 4 made, and it removed that 2 minute per level. You can explore the level now, at your own leisure, and find the sickest lines to hit. It also gave you a chance to just appreciate the level of detail that got put into each level. New Jersey has a different feel to Tampa, which has a different feel to Moscow. But don't worry, each level's packed full of things to skate. This was the game that made 6-year-old me a fan of the series and skate culture in general. I'm glad that this game gets to have a spot on this list because it deserves it for sure. And with that, we're done here. 20 games that would make fun as hell classics on a console. If I missed anything, just drop a comment and I'll get around to reading it. I'll catch you all next time, and I hope you liked the video. Peace.